Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Tessie and today we're going to be making this dress. If you're new to the channel, you're welcome. If you're yet to subscribe, kindly do that and let's get right into the video. So what I used was crepe and I used 3 yards of fabric. So what I did was to fold my fabric into two, as you can see. Then I'm going to be chalking the starting point. The starting point will serve as my shoulder line. So after chalking, I'm going to be placing my shoulder measurement divided by 2. So the shoulder I'm working with divided by 2 will give me 9.5. Then from that point, I came down to my armhole line, which is 9 inches. I connected it into a straight line. What I did next was to chalk from the shoulder to the bust point, which is 11. Then I also connected it into a straight line. What I did next was to chalk from the shoulder to the waistline. Then I also connected it into a straight line. Then I took from the waist to the hip line, which is 10 inches. I connected it into a straight line, as you can see. So after doing that, I'm going to be taking from the shoulder to the length of the dress. So from the shoulder to the length of the dress is 52 inches. I added extra 2 inches for folding allowance. So at the starting point, I'm going to be placing my neck measurement. So I'm using 3 by 2.5 for the neckline. Then I connected it together. So what I did next was on the shoulder area, I'm going to be coming down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. Then I connected it all the way down, as you can see. The next thing to do is to check what you have at that chest line area. So I have 8 inches divided by 2 is 4. From that point, I'm going to be coming in by ½ inch. Then on the chest line, I will be placing my bust measurement divided by 4, which gave me 11 inches. So what I'll do is just curve in my armhole. So now we'll be placing our measurements. So on the chest line, I'll place my bust measurement divided by 4, which is 11 inches. I'll be adding extra 2 inches for sewing allowance. At the waist area, I'm going to be placing my waist measurement divided by 4. Then I'll add 2 inches for sewing allowance. So I'll connect from the bust point to the waistline. Then at the hip area, I'm going to place my hip measurement divided by 4. So the hip divided by 4, I'm going to chalk it down, then also add 2 inches for my sewing allowance. So I'll connect from the waist to the hip line. So after connecting, for the down part, I want the down to have this pencil effect. So I'll check what I have at the hip area. So you can see I have 14 inches. I'll take 2 inches off. So I'm just going to be chalking 12 inches. From that point, I'm just going to connect it together. So guys, we are done with the front. I'll go ahead now to cut out my front. So at the shoulder area, I left ½ inch for joining allowance. So after cutting the front, we'll be cutting the back. So for the back, I folded my fabric into 2. So what I'll do is to chalk 2 inches for my zip allowance. We'll be adding zip at the back. So go ahead, chalk out your zip allowance. After chalking out my zip allowance, I'm going to be connecting it into a straight line. After connecting my lines together, I'll be placing the front on the back. Then I'll be taking my neckline for the back. So for the back, I'm going to be using 2 inches for the neckline. So I went ahead to chalk 2 inches. What I'll do next is curve in my back neckline. Then for the zip bulge, I don't want my zip bulging at the back. I'm just going to chalk the waistline straight down, just like this. Then from that point, I'll come in by 1 inch, then slant all the way up and slant all the way down, just to eliminate zip bulge at the back. So I'll slant at that down part as well. So I'll go ahead now to cut out my back pattern. Guys, if you've watched the video to this point and you're yet to subscribe, kindly do that and let's get right back into the video. So I'll go ahead now to cut out the zip allowance area. Then I'll be notching the zip allowance area. So we are done with the back pattern. So I'm going to be taking out the back. So what we'll be doing next is working on the front. So now for the front, we'll be working on the keyhole area. So from the starting point, that's the shoulder line, you chalk where you want your keyhole to start from. So for me, I'm going to be chalking 5 inches. So from the shoulder, I chalk 5 inches. I'll go ahead now to connect it into a straight line. So after connecting my lines, I'll come in by 3.5. So from this point, I came in by 3.5. Then I chalked it down as you can see. So now it depends on how deep you want this area to be. So for me, I'm just going to be making use of 2 inches. So I'll be coming down by 2 inches. So I just placed my tape. I came down by 2 inches. After doing that, I'm just going to be curving my lines together. So depending on the shape you want it to have, if you want it to have a sweetheart effect, you could just give it a sweetheart effect. But I will be working with this curve. So after doing that, at this point, I don't want the yoke area to be straight. So I'll just come up by half inch, then slant all the way down here. So I placed my tape, I came up by half inch. Then from that point, I'm just going to slant it in. So guys, after slanting, I just make the lines visible. I hope you guys can see. So guys, what I did was on the shoulder, I came down by 5 inches. Then from this point, I came in by 3.5. And from this point, I came down by 2 inches. Then I just curved in. Then at this top part, I came in by half an inch and I just slanted it in. So what I'll be doing next is cutting it out. So go ahead now to cut. So guys, when you're cutting, you are supposed to come up by half inch for joining allowance. I forgot I didn't come up by half inch, but come up by half inch in order for your keyhole not to be too wide. Mine is going to be a little bit wide, or you should come up by half inch. Hope you understand. So I'll go ahead now to cut out that area. I'll cut out the yoke. So guys, after cutting out my yoke, I'm going to be notching that 3.5 inches. That's where my joining will take place. So guys, this is what it will look like when you place them together. This is what it will look like as you can see. So what I'll do is just open it up so that you guys can see it. So I'm just going to open it up and then place the yoke on the dress. So guys, what we'll do is place them together. So I'm just going to place them together this way and we'll stitch using half inch. But because we were cutting on the main fabric, we didn't use a pattern for this. I'm going to be cutting another yoke just to add sewing allowance at the top parts. So guys, what I did was to fold my fabric into two, then I placed my yoke. I'll be adding half inch for joining allowance at that down part. Then I'll go ahead now to cut. So after cutting, I also notched the area that we'll be stitching. So guys, I'm going to be cutting lining for this. So I'm going to be using the main fabric to line the yoke. So I want the yoke to be lined. So I'm going to place the yoke on the fabric. Then I'll go ahead now to cut out the same shape. So guys, after cutting out my yoke, I'm going to place them together right side facing each other. Then I'll stitch at the neckline area half inch and also stitch at the down part. I'm just going to close it. Then I'll use my bias to pipe the neckline for the dress. Then I'll also use my bias at the back. I'll use my bias for the neckline for the back as well. So after lining the yoke, this is what it looks like as you can see. And for the dress as well, I've used my bias for the neckline. So what I'll do is place my yoke to the dress. So now you know we notched 3.5 inches. So our stitching is going to start from that point. So I'm just going to place my yoke on the main dress and stitch using half inch all the way to that 3.5 inches. And I'll stitch here as well. So guys, after stitching, this is what it looks like as you can see. So I'm just going to give it a very good press and we're good to go with that. So I've also closed the zip allowance area and folded the neckline using my bias. So I'm just going to place the front and the back together. So I'll go ahead now to place it together this way. Then I'll be stitching at that shoulder area by half inch. I'll do the same thing for this part as well. So now for my sleeve, I have my fabric folded into two. So on fold, I have 13.5 inches and the length I'm using is 22 inches. I'll be adding an extra 2 inches for the band. So now I'm just going to use my free hand to curve my armhole. So go ahead, cut out your sleeve. I'm just going to cross check if I have my armhole. After doing that, I'm just going to make the lines visible. Then from that point, I'm just going to go straight down. So I want it to be a bit free because I'm going to be pleating at the down parts. So I'll go ahead now to cut out my sleeve. So guys, after cutting out my sleeve, this is it. So we're going to be pleating the down part of the sleeve. So now I'm going to be notching the middle part of my sleeve. I'll also go ahead now to cut out the second sleeve. After doing that, what I'll do is pleat the down part of the sleeve to my wrist measurement, leaving half inch at the sides for joining allowance. So I'll go ahead now to pleat. And I also do the same thing for this part. After pleating, this is what it looks like, as you can see. Now for the band, I've cut out my fabric for the band. So what I have here is 4.5 inches. So on fold, it will be 2.5. So what I'll do is just place my band right side facing each other, stitch. After stitching, I'm just going to turn it this way and then stitch the top part. So I'll do the same thing for this side as well. So guys, after attaching my band to the sleeve, this is what it looks like, as you can see. So what we'll be doing next is adding the sleeve to the dress. So the notched part of the sleeve, I'm just going to place it at the middle part of my shoulder. Then I'll stitch all the way down to this point, and I'll also stitch all the way down to this other armhole. I'll do the same thing for this part as well. So after attaching my sleeve to the dress, this is what it looks like. So what I'll do next is to shape my dress. So I'll move over to my machine, shape in my dress, and after doing that, this is what it looks like, as you can see. So on the dress there is slit, so you decide where you want to put your slit, if you want it at the right side or at the left side. So I want mine at the right side. So I don't know if you guys can see that middle point at that front area. So from that point, you come in by like 4 inches. So I came in by 4 inches, and then I'm just going to chop that 4 inches line. So you have to determine how deep you want your slit to be. So for me, my clients want the slit to start from 36 inches. So I'm just going to chop that 36 inches and connect it all the way down to that 4 inches line. So after connecting it all the way down, I'm just going to be opening the slit. So I'm going to use my scissors to open that area. If you want your slit a bit deeper than this, you could just cut out a bit. So I had to cut out a bit so that it will be a bit opened. So this is it. So what I'll do next is to fold the slit area. So you could stitch that part or use Amy gum and then fold it neatly, or you could cut a facing for it. So for me, I'm just going to use Amy gum to close the slit neatly. So I'll go ahead now to add my zip and show us the end result. So guys, this is the final result. You can see how lovely it came out. My client is here to come for fitting. But hope this tutorial was helpful. Please do not forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, drop a comment. Please guys, follow me on Instagram and on Facebook at So With Tess. See you guys in my next video. For now, I'll say bye.